Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
Hey everyone, what's going on? We are live right now with the Seller Roundtable podcast, and I'm here with my friend Matt Shaw. And you guys, you're going to want to join us in the Zoom for this or catch this live, because I started talking to Matt a couple of weeks ago. He had this incredible story about, well, first I thought I was just talking to this guy who was running a 3PL, and I'm like, oh man, another one? Okay, but Matt has not only run a 3PL, he has been a seller, he has done so many things. And like a lot of us during this pandemic, he has had to completely pivot, and he's done it with class and has really pulled it off. So I know that everyone is going to learn a lot from Matt's story today, and I hope that you guys will join us here in the podcast, because it's going to be awesome. Welcome, Matt. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. This is exciting, and I appreciate Amazing at Home and yourself for having us on. Looking to share our experiences, some of the things we've learned in my organization over the years, and hopefully help others in their journey.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to hit the recording button for the show, and we'll get right into it. Oh,
right.
You know what? I have to check. I didn't even check what today's episode number was. So before I hit the recording button, I'm going to pull it up and look at what our episode number is. We are episode number 113 today. Okay, got it. I can't believe we recorded 113 episodes. It's insane. So, all right, here I go. I'm going to hit the record button.
All right.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I am Amy Wees, and Andy Arnott is out today. We miss him, but we are here for episode number 113 of the Seller Roundtable podcast, and we're here with special guest Matt Shaw, and you guys are just going to love Matt's story today. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Amy, so much.
Well, as I was talking about on the live before we hit the recording button, I talked to you. We had a meeting a few weeks ago, and we were just talking about your 3PL. And, we got on a Zoom call to I like to vet all of the providers that I recommend across the board. And so we get on this call, and I start asking you about yourself, and you tell me this just incredible story. And I was so impressed at all of the things that you have done and how you've actually pivoted into a 3PL out of kind of necessity during COVID and in order to serve others. And it's just such a cool story. So, we usually start our podcast just getting an understanding of your background and who you are and all of that. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about you? You can provide as much or as little information as you'd like, but give us a little background. Tell us a little bit more of your story.
Great. Well, thank you. So it's a wild story, because I really started out in marketing and sales, and I was selling coupon books, and I was working with, school systems and that would sell the books, and then the restaurants that were in those. And I kind of parlayed that into starting to sell baby products for a company here in North Carolina. I'm in Raleigh, by the way. And the interesting thing about that is I kind of got into this whole new industry. And it really expanded, my sales territory at the time to covering the United States, when I had been covering 2 or 3 counties before. So it was a big step, learning opportunity. And kind of as I got into that road, I started learning a lot more about Amazon and working with some different companies that were, at the time, very involved in the Amazon and the FBA side of things. And all of that was developing and growing. And so I kind of transitioned through a few companies, and I'm working as a sales rep one day, and I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking, I want to be my own boss, and my boss is making all this money, and I'm over here working hard, and it's like, how do I provide and create my own future? And the interesting thing is, I was browsing on Facebook, and I said, well, I want to get paid to do this, right? So I kind of talked with a company that I knew who I had been selling products to that would sell them on Amazon. And I started bringing in some baby brands to be managed. So I kind of contracted into that company, and that company was called Jollity. And I started, repping these brands, bringing them in and helping develop, their products and their presentation on Amazon. And then, we were doing some really exciting things because, the A+ descriptions, all of that was not even existent yet. The videos on listings was not around. And so all these things we were learning how to do before they were even something that, people were able to utilize within Amazon. And so I learned so much from this opportunity and kind of grew and grew and was there for a number of years. And then I kind of, transitioned into doing some warehousing, kind of the 3PL side of things, and really managing Amazon returns, which, a lot of people here that are involved know, especially yourself, how complex and time consuming it can be dealing with those returns. So I think we had a client that was a very large volume in the baby industry, and we calculated if we got a warehouse, we could save so much money by managing all the returns ourselves. And so it went into that. And then, fast forward a few years and I went out on my own and was doing my own Amazon FBA business. And then kind of at the same time, still running the warehouse. And then, COVID comes along. And one of my largest customers at the time was a Wobble Stool brand, and all the elementary schools stopped ordering. So there we were, early, I guess it was happening as early as February when everything was getting a little dicey.
And you were selling millions of dollars in these Wobble Stools, right? And these
Yes.
elementary schools all shut down due to COVID.
Yep.
And so now
And so,
your whole business, besides the warehouse, your whole business was basically like, okay, what do I do now? Because it wasn't like you were going to sell a bunch of Wobble Stools on Amazon. That's not necessarily like people were looking for those outside of the elementary schools, right?
Well, a lot of the Amazon business was the elementary schools, and they were the business buyers. And so what was happening is that just stopped. So, a large percentage of the business was those business buyers, and it just went away. It really slowed down, and it kind of came back in a resurgence when the whole, go back to school at home thing happened. But instead of it being large schools ordering, it was a whole bunch of small orders. And so there was this huge kind of transition period there that was happening. And, that brand, was really affected by it. And they had to kind of go off and start doing their own strategy. And, we were kind of left, here at my company saying, okay, what is our next step? How are we going to, keep the lights on, right? So I had another contact who, interestingly enough, sold a lot of consumable type products, think linen like napkins and straws and cleaners, degreasers, even toilet paper. And so all of a sudden we started selling all these items that were in high demand on Amazon because we were established. We knew how to make things work in the channel. We were perfectly positioned to, all of a sudden Amazon said, sorry, can't send any more inventory unless it's an essential item into FBA. Well, we had a warehouse. So we all of a sudden were drop shipping like crazy. And it really was just a wild year because I would have months where we would do insane numbers selling a microban, aerosol, disinfectant.
Right.
And so all of these wild things happened. And we kind of got to today where we've transitioned more and more into, doing a lot of the 3PL side of the business for Amazon dealers that, since COVID have said, hey, I have to streamline my inventory flow. I can't hold as much stock at Amazon. I have to be very careful with my shipment creation. And, Amazon is constantly adjusting that metric. So you have to stay on top of it. So we have kind of switched gears and we moved that direction, and we have all kinds of wild things going on.
Yeah.
So it's been exciting.
That's crazy. So you haven't been a private label seller per se. You've always kind of done sales for other major brands or for big companies, which allowed you to pivot into many different types of products, to go from your wobble stools to, toilet paper and anything else that you could sell. But what was great was you having a warehouse allowed you to, during the time when everybody else in private label was kind of frozen, you were able to fulfill whatever you needed to fulfill, and faster than Amazon was able to fulfill it. We
Correct.
also took that opportunity during Amazon because during the pandemic, and when Amazon was not delivering, because we had our own warehouse. So we just swapped over to merchant fulfilled. And we had so many sales during that time because people were just looking. They didn't even care if it was merchant fulfilled back then. They were just looking for something that was delivered on time, that wasn't going to be delivered 3 months down the road.
Yep.
So,
It's
it was crazy.
so sorry. It's very interesting you say that. I've always, from when I first started on Amazon, been a fan of having a merchant listing and an FBA listing for a product, in case you do have, you run low in inventory, or forbid Amazon all of a sudden takes 3 months to receive a pallet. That happens, and
Yes.
having a contingency plan in place for that is that backstop of inventory somewhere, and or the ability to get more shipments out. And when you run a large amount of inventory on LTL, on pallets, sometimes a pallet will get stuck somewhere and you're waiting, and you look
That
at your
is so
sellable
true.
inventory go down, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, what are we going to do? Do we
And then
send another one really quick?
you can't send in more inventory either. That's what happened to us
Yep.
is, and somebody posted in our group the other day and talked about how Amazon lost an entire shipment, like 30,000 products or something. And then somebody else commented and said, oh, Amazon lost my stuff too. And I'm in the same situation, and they can't send in more
Mhm.
because their restock limits are reached, because that shipment still shows that it's being checked in or whatever, or it hasn't checked in yet. And so they get stuck. And if they had a way to merchant fulfill, they could continue selling. Even if that merchant fulfilled option is less numbers than your FBA numbers would be, it's still a really, really great option. So I'm also a big fan of merchant fulfilled. So, you have so much experience. I'm definitely going to pick your brain on the Amazon side, because I think there's so much that people want to know. And so tell me about Amazon returns. You mentioned Amazon returns and how you were processing Amazon returns. We also do some processing of Amazon returns. It's a very concierge service, but
Yep.
tell me why people should process their own returns, or if they can, or hire someone to process their returns, and what kind of things you discovered in processing returns.
Oh, wow. So I've been involved in returns from times where they show up in my apartment at the time, and I have a stack of boxes to go through. And then, as we got into having a warehouse, we had a little bit more of a streamlined organizational process in place. But you see so many things from Amazon sending back a totally different product, and this guy that I worked for always joked that I'm waiting for the diamond ring to show up, because Amazon will scan something with a barcode and it can be blue, barcode says red, does not matter. And so the trick is, how do you work through that and understand that you're going to get inventory returned, there's going to be damaged packaging, and you need a process for it. You need to be able to quarantine eBay for used items. Some categories you can do used on Amazon. Most that I've sold in didn't even have the ability. So, I haven't been as involved with that. But I think, minimizing the loss of the wholesale dollars from whatever that batch of inventory is, and then seeing if you can work out credits with manufacturers, or return rates. Some clients will have a return rate built in, and then if they kind of are able to reuse some of the returned inventory and get it sellable again, then they win. And so there's a sweet spot for the price point. So if it's very cheap item, sometimes it's not even worth it. And I tend to say that things over $20 make more sense. And then of course, if it's $50, $100, a high value item like that, you don't want to just lose all those wholesale dollars. in that inventory, whether it's disposed or even if you're donating it, some companies can't even write off donations based on their tax status. So it's like, what are they supposed to do? So they say it takes a village, because you need a team to, go through those items and open up the boxes and determine what the issue was. And then there's companies you can bring in as well that will help you when Amazon makes a mistake and sends back 3 items when they were supposed to send 4. You can have someone do the case and the creation and all that, and they take a small percentage, but you get most of that money back when Amazon makes the mistake. So
yeah, I mean, since we started, we've always processed our own returns. And I tell people the same thing. Basically, I had a client call this morning and I was explaining it. They said, well, should we process returns? Like, what should we do with our returns? Can we trust Amazon? The first question was, can we trust Amazon to take that return and put it back into the sellable pile if it's truly sellable, or put it in the damaged and get rid of pile if it's truly damaged? And I said, absolutely not. You cannot trust Amazon, because we get all of our returns back, and we've gotten them back for years. And like you said, Matt, sometimes you get a completely different product. They're not checking this at all. The tag inside of that return says that it's damaged or whatever. And it's either never been opened. The percentage of customer damage or damaged marked products that have never been opened that are returned is incredibly high. I would say like 90% of the stuff that we get back says it's damaged, but it's never been opened. And you can get reimbursed for that. So if you, and like you mentioned, if it's an over $20 product and you could get reimbursed for that, and that's a 90% ratio of, of what is marked damaged, but there's really nothing wrong with it. And Amazon's not taking the time to actually open it and look at it. They say that they do, but they don't. And there's just no way. I mean, do you agree with me there? There's just no way they're actually opening them, because of when you process your own returns, you see that, it's completely wrong, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that. There is a Amazon fulfillment center near where we're located here in Raleigh, and I have literally considered going to get a job there just to get
so
on the floor, just to be like, all right, this is what it's like. Okay, now I know. Now I see it. And but the problem is they'll probably want to have me managing a bunch of people, and then the cat will be out of the bag. And so
yeah. Yeah, I know. I've also just thought, I would love to hear, whether or not, I would love to see that, whether or not Amazon is actually doing anything with these things. That would be so helpful to know. So yeah. Okay. So returns, along the line of returns, you guys, if you have a way to process your returns, or you can find a 3PL or someone to process your returns for you, at a minimum, do that in the beginning when you're first selling a product, because you will learn so much about the way that your products are handled, the way that they're marked. And a lot of customers, I don't know, there's a lot of sellers that don't even shop on Amazon, or they don't shop on Amazon US. And so they don't realize that the reason that customers mark a product damaged is so that they don't have to pay a return fee. So they want to return a product, they'll just mark it damaged, because you get these options of different radio icons that you can select when you go to return a product. And if you select that, it's damaged, then Amazon's like, oh, it's good. No return fee for you. Go ahead and send it back. And that's why there's such a high percentage. But if you do have a product that, like that, where you're getting a lot of returns, you definitely want to check them out, or do that, right? Did I miss anything there on returns?
I think so.
Okay, so my next question for you, you mentioned that a huge amount of your buyers, when you were selling wobble stools, were business buyers. So tell me about your business buyer setup on Amazon. What are the ways that people should set up for business buyers? And what are the benefits to using, were you discounting for business buyers? Were you discounting in bulk quantities? Give us some tips about using the business buyer option.
So with the business buyers, there's a whole nother extra set of metrics you can look at within your account that'll help you kind of see how much your business is going to the business buyers. And anyone that is looking at their order history, there's a little icon or tag that shows up that says it's a business buyer. And I love to look at those and say, like, who's the business? Like, if it's a paper towel dispenser or something, who's buying this? Or if it's one of my private labels products, oh, like I'm interested to know what category it is. And sometimes you'll see that it's a car dealership, and you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And so you see angles there. So just a side tip. But for the business buyers, you kind of have two prices, right? So you have your sales price and you have your business buyer price, and those can be the same. But if someone has a business account, when they're logging in, they're going to see the business price. So the everyday buyer on Amazon isn't going to see that unless they're logged into that account, unless that's changed. But my understanding is that. And then you also have the ability to do the quantity discounts, as well as you can set up the percentages or a flat, dollar amount off at, 5 units, 10 units, 100 units. And I think there's one new category option where it's like bulk, where you can literally set up pallet quantities of stuff. So I think paper towels, large quantities like that you can set up. And the benefit is Amazon is going after the business buyer big time. And what's happening is they're saying, hey, we want to compete with these other big box stores that are doing tons of B2B business. And in that, you're able to capture a new kind of demographic of buyers that are out there logging into their business account, and they're looking for lots of consumable items. So if you're thinking, oh, we sell, I don't know, paper clips, we'll use that as an example. Offices are going through those like crazy. Well, if you have a really cool paper clip and you want to get it out there, having a business price point and a quantity price within the business buying side is going to give you an advantage, because you're going to show up, you're going to be more competitive. And I think it is definitely something that every listing on Amazon should have. I don't sell any products that don't have a business price. And if I'm doing any discounting or quantity price breaks, all of that is run through the business buying side.
So that's a really smart thing that people can do, is just check their metrics, number one. And number two, make sure that they have some kind of business buyer discount set up, because what do you have to lose? Absolutely
Exactly.
nothing, right?
Yeah, there's no additional costs. You're simply reaching out to a whole new group of buyers.
I love that. And if you're offering a business buyer discount, people see that and they go, oh, well, if I can log in with my business account and get a slight discount on this, it's the same thing we all do, when we go to buy something. If we can use it for our business, we go and look and see, oh, well, can I get this wholesale, or can I, save money on this? So what a wonderful opportunity. I love that you have experience with that, because that's something that people ask about, what is this business buyer thing, and how do I work it, right?
Something I love about it is we buy a whole lot of 4x6 labels for the thermal printing for all the shipments, and I buy those on Amazon. So I go in and I look at, what brands that I like the best, as we've bought 3 or 4, and then it's where's the quantity break and how do I want to cash flow it? I want to buy a whole lot of them, or ooh, I want to try out this new brand. They have a really good price for 4,000 versus 1,000, so maybe I'll do that, and it just helps. And as the seller in that side, you're probably going to have a much better margin positioning with that higher volume.
Yeah, I think it's super smart to do that, and you can't lose at all.
Yep,
It's a smart way to do it. I love it. And I also, when I was a reseller, I bought so many supplies on Amazon because you could really get better discounts. And I think the more that people aren't going out to Costco and Sam's Club, and you even see nowadays, you can't get a lot of the supplies when you go to Costco and Sam's Club and such. You can't get a lot of those supplies even in store anymore. You have to get them online. So if you can buy them on Amazon in bulk for cheaper or with a better selection, you're going to make those decisions every time. So it's really awesome. It's an awesome opportunity. And even if you don't think that your product would be used by business buyers. Like I have clients that sell gift products and stuff like that, and businesses buy them. So you'll be surprised, even if you don't think that your product would be sold to a business, that it will be, right?
Yep. Very true.
Thanks for tuning in to part 1 of this episode. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com. Welcome to the Seller Roundtable e-commerce coaching and business strategies with Andy Arnott and Amy Wees.
So, I mean, let's get into the warehousing and 3PL side of the business. I mean, so many questions. There are so many sellers out there that have questions about this, that aren't sure how to find a 3PL, who aren't sure how much they should be storing, what they should be doing. So let's just talk a little bit about, what is a 3PL and what kind of services do you offer and what do people come to you for?
Right. Okay. So 3PL, third-party logistics. It's really funny when we were putting our name on the door. I kind of gave them the logo and I wanted and 3PL below it, and they spelled it out, third-party logistics. So I come back and the logo's on the door. I'm like, all right, that looks good. So for a 3PL, think of it as you have inventory that you are trying to get or from one point to the other, and you need someone to kind of help massage it around, whether it's repositioning on pallets, whether it's just holding pallets for a certain amount of time, or it's taking a container, breaking it down, splitting out the inventory, and then it's going to other fulfillment centers. And so if you think, comparing to Amazon is just a really big logistics company that's moving inventory. So it is positioned really close to the end user. So with the 3PL, you're doing the same thing. We do it on a much smaller scale and do a little bit more of a white glove treatment to it. But the end goal is to have inventory readily available so that as a seller, you can have it positioned to either A, get to the end user quickly, or B, get into the Amazon network quickly based on if you have a dedicated warehouse you're shipping to and your supplier is on the other side of the world. We have a few clients who will send us inventory so that they can position to go for all their East Coast Amazon warehouses from our facility. And so it saves them transit time. Of course, there is less risk of problems when something is going a shorter distance, as well as the ability to constantly be flowing your inventory, kind of a just-in-time setup, so that you can stay on top of what you need, but not have too much, but then be able to react when you need to send more. And so I think that it's a very important thing for any Amazon FBA dealer that is kind of moving out of, selling from their house, and they're saying, hey, I need to be able to have more inventory. My garage is overflowing. But I don't know if I want to work with a really big company that does a lot of 3PL business, because I want to have someone that understands Amazon and can kind of be a relationship for my brand as I grow, and can roll with the punches, because every brand that's starting out, especially in Amazon, is going to have the ebbs and flows of inventory problems. And I think everybody is seeing that with transit costs from China to the United States right now.
Yeah, it's insane.
Which are very high. I have a client who is paying for a container on the water what they paid a year ago to air the products in. And so think about the transit time differences in those two scenarios. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, I would completely agree. It's crazy. We had Chelsea come from So Stocked and talk to us last night in our mastermind group about, the different level. You can't just send a bunch of stock to Amazon anymore. Those days are so over. And Amazon is making little promises in the background saying that they're going to change this, and in the future there might be more warehouse space, but they were not meant to be a warehouse. They were meant to be a distribution center. So it's really important that we all figure out our inventory, and that we have inventory and buffer stock, so that we've got 90 days at Amazon, or we make sure we're restocking as soon as we get down to 30 days of stock, and we keep buffer stock either at a warehouse or a 3PL in the US, so that we're able to keep that going. Because if we actually run out of stock, that impacts, Amazon calculates our sell-through rate. And if you're out of stock of one of your products, that also impacts how much more you can send in, because how much you sell through is actually calculated into your restock rates. So I didn't even realize that. I did not realize that if I stocked out of one of my products and I was out of stock for, let's say, a month or longer, that now how much of that product or any product I could send back in was actually limited. So what a 3PL allows you to do is merchant fulfill and keep buffer stock along, around Amazon if possible, and then also to sell on other channels. So if you are selling on Walmart, if you're selling on eBay, you were just talking about returns, being able to flip some of your returns and sell those on other channels like eBay, Amazon warehouse deals, something like that. That's great. But if you don't have a process to do that, you can't send those back into Amazon. So we need to have a way to fulfill those sales. So a 3PL is a great way to do that. But that being said, there are warehouses as well, right? So there's warehouses and then there's 3PLs. And if you're just using your warehouse as a storage place and you're seed feeding Amazon, a 3PL you might not need a 3PL. Am I right about that? So if you're just using a holding area for your inventory and you're sending in regular stock to Amazon, a warehouse may be good enough for you. But if you're wanting to process returns, if you're wanting to sell on other channels, if you're wanting to do any kind of merchant fulfilled, then you should look for a 3PL. Am I right about that, Matt?
Yeah, the difference in the warehouses and most of the warehouses are going to have a little bit of a 3PL kind of within their process, but the biggest thing there is they're going to hold stuff for a longer term, and they're going to be much larger facilities that are going to have a lot of just space to just store stuff, and it sits. And a lot of the 3PLs, especially that are working into Amazon, are more set up to touch and feel the product a little bit more and solve problems. All the time I see a client, is sending us a shipment, and we're getting the labels coming in from a rep group that manages the account, and the inventory came in from the other side of the world, and they're ordering in the wrong master carton quantity. And so then we have to kind of help them solve those problems and determine where the mix-up was along the way. And if you're working with too large of an organization, it's just going to be harder to solve that and get your product moving efficiently and quickly. And we really push for timely shipments, whether it's pallets or master cartons out into Amazon. So.
Got it. That makes sense. So a little bit more of a concierge service, or like you were calling it, a white glove service compared to a warehouse. So very good. Awesome. And why don't you tell us a little bit more about your 3PL and where it's located? And are you guys taking new clients on right now?
Yep. So we are shaw3pl.com is our website, but we kind of DBA as Shaw Distribution. And because we do not just 3PL, but we do some distribution for some other companies, and we do a lot of things that are not even related to Amazon. So that kind of gives us the ability to help with if you sell something into Walgreens, or if you simply need to have inventory rekitted or repacked. We do lots of things like that for people. I'm waiting on a deal to come through for Costco, where we will actually receive master cartons of snacks and then make them into the funny little displays that you see when you go in Costco, where you just grab the huge bag of snacks out. So apparently there's a whole business in that. So yes, we are taking clients. We're looking for, the brands that, they have Amazon going, they're established, but they say, hey, I need help. I need an East Coast presence, or even some people say I need a US presence. We have some clients that have no US office at all, and we're basically their whole arm of the operation over here. So it's very interesting because we meet so many different people and so many different products, whether it's a wobble stool. We've worked with the squatty potties stuff before, face masks, you name it, it's on Amazon. And especially if it's any kind of widget that has to flow through a warehouse, if you're putting your hands on it, touching it, making sure that any issues are solved, if there is stickering problems. And as you're very aware, Amazon, the sticker requirements are always changing, and there's all kinds of new programs like the transparency program that are designed to kind of help people, but sometimes they can be more of a hindrance if you're not very knowledgeable and involved in those. And so I like to say that, clean and concise is the best way to do any of it. And that's the way to go.
Yeah, you mentioned transparency, and they have the transparency program and the zero program. And we actually were using it for a while, but we stopped using it because it was just so time consuming and costly, right? Because
Yep,
you have to put a different barcode on every single one of your
exactly.
products. And you're supposed to also have those different barcodes on your products going to retail. And that didn't make any sense to me. I was just like, wow. At first, I created a new label for our product with one of the transparency barcodes on it. And my husband said, no, we can't use that because we have to use a different barcode for every single product. And I was like, how are we going to make that happen? That's
Right.
insane. So I get it if you're selling a really competitive product that, where you deal with a lot of hijackers, it might be a business saving endeavor for you to use transparency or zero. But for us, it was just so much extra work. And we were like, nope, we'll use the patents, we'll use the intellectual property to protect us instead of dealing with transparency or zero. But that's another thing that you brought up that would be a good reason to have a logistics partner like a 3PL to help you, because there's so much that you have to do for those programs, right?
Yeah, the labeling side of it. I mean, I was in the beta program for transparency a number of years ago, and I'm emailing with these engineers at Amazon and the back and forth, and just trying to understand the flow of what they're wanting to accomplish with it back then was a mess, and I kind of was turned off. But I feel that, it may be a better fit for, like you say, those highly competitive situations. But we're using brand registry, trademark, and all that to help with the products that we private label and sell. But I've had clients in the past that are getting ripped off by random sellers, and sometimes a lot of people have said it's the wild wild west, and it is. But if you can ride your horse, then you can get through it. So
I love it. So,
yeah.
you've had so much experience selling all kinds of different things on Amazon and also pivoting. So, I would love to ask your advice for somebody who's new, someone who's just getting into Amazon today. What would be your advice for somebody looking to get into the Amazon opportunity?
So there's a few sides to that. You have the I don't want to call it arbitrage, but people that are finding products that they can source and then compete with other sellers. So not necessarily something from the dollar store, but it's pretty easy to get lined up if you dig deep enough and find product lines that some distributor will sell to you, and you are able to sell those on Amazon. And so getting the volume going where you're saying, okay, we're making a little bit of profit, but it's all going into inventory. And that's going to happen. And that before you even go to PPC budgets and getting someone to help with your content, get those first sales, get the simple system going. And then as you start to see increases in growth and organic sales, you're kind of going to start doing more of the PPC thing. And I'm a big fan of finding the right partner for that. I'm sure you're aware there's so many different companies that do the analytics there. And if you're a small, up and coming brand and you're trying to do your private label and you're like, I just don't have time for this, hire one of those companies, learn from them, figure out what they're doing and how you can replicate it. And yes, some of them have software, but a lot of it is taking an Excel document and massaging the data so it looks pretty. And there's obviously a lot more to that, but you can get a basic understanding from a lot of the tools that Amazon is going to give you in the PPC side of things when you're launching and you're starting to grow your volume. And it's not going to happen overnight. I see on way too many forums where people come in and they're like, I have this product, I'm going to sell so much. And you have to have a long road and focus your direction so that you're going after the right products, and B, making sure that your pricing is correct. And then, having the background with that. I see so many people who they have a great idea, but they don't understand the business side of it at all. And so they're kind of like, here's my idea, it's out there. And then, you need someone to come in and help you massage the details a little bit to be successful and grow. And there's a lot of coaching that I've seen where, someone wants to sell you something as far as, they're on YouTube and whatnot, and watch that stuff, learn from it, and then, spend the time early on to really get into the forums and ask the questions.
Yeah.
Just browsing on Facebook in the comments for a lot of the seller groups, you'll see a question and be like, oh yeah, I had that question. And there you didn't have to pay anybody. You just took the time yourself to do the research. And so I think that, background research, having a good product, a good strategy. I always come back to my marketing background on the 4 Ps, which are the product, price, placement, and promotion being the PPC side of things. So you get all those to fall into line and you can be successful.
Yeah, I love that advice about learning the business first, starting small and learning the business. That's exactly what I did, because back in 2007, when I started on Amazon, I was just flipping like textbooks and stuff like that. It was not a business yet. And then in 2017, when I invented my product and started my own private label brands, I really had to learn it. It wasn't like, oh, well, I've been selling on Amazon, I totally get this. No, I need to learn it. I need to figure out what is this new business model and how do I do it? And that's when I started doing retail arbitrage and wholesale and all different types of business models, and just dip my toe in them so that I could understand how it works, how to read BSRs, how to understand how to look at the page. Like you were talking about the 4 Ps, where is the product placed on the page? Can the customer find it? How do I have to do listing optimization? How do I do search engine optimization? All of that I had to learn. And I learned it through starting with other people's products before launching my own. And that way I could get a feel for the category, get a feel for the processes. And I still recommend that today, because there's plenty of opportunities still out there in e-commerce, whether you're on Shopify, Amazon, or any of the e-commerce channels. There's a ton of opportunity, but the basics are still important to learn. And if you learn those basics first, you're going to do well. So we have Andrew Craig asking a question here. And Andrew, I saw him at Prosper. It was really great. It's good to see that he's alive after Prosper. I wonder if his voice sounds like mine, but but he says no, it doesn't. But anyway, he said, I'm starting up my Shopify store. And I know, Matt, you're going to have some good advice for him as well here. I'm starting up my Shopify store, and I'm going to start shipping out of my garage. Yes, I love that. Any advice for the best shipping companies in the US, or any other beginner advice? So I'll let you go first, Matt.
Okay. All right. So I have a number of clients where they have a Shopify storefront and we ship for them. And one thing I love, and there's a number of companies that do this, but I use ShipStation. And ShipStation is a very beneficial because they have group rates for UPS. And so I will link my UPS account, and then I will have the ShipStation account, and I'll compare those UPS rates and find the cheapest rate when I'm printing those labels. Additionally, you can link in USPS through stamps.com. That is ideally the way that I'm going to ship anything out of my facility that is going as a drop ship. because I've been very happy with the integration. ShipStation will pull in both your Shopify orders and your Amazon orders and your eBay orders. So I can sell a used item on eBay, I can sell a new item merchant fulfilled on Amazon, and I can have my website pull in a Shopify order, and I go to ShipStation and they're all there. And I can choose the rules for the shipping and everything like that. So we'll process out, I print my labels. I either give it to the UPS driver. We have pickups daily. Someone that's at home is not going to have that. So either, you figure out where the sweet spot is in your volume to start scheduling those pickups. And then of course, a lot of the sites will let you go on and schedule those as well. Some of them have a fee. And it's interesting, USPS, we get daily pickups, but some, they can be spotty. If you remember back in the end of the year, USPS was really struggling just because of the demand with everyone being at home. And so we have to thank them for their hard work, but at the same time, have a strategy for our businesses so that we can get product to the end user, because, the end user doesn't care. They're buying something, they expect the kind of the history that Amazon has given them of 2 days. So I think that using ShipStation is a good place to start to find that. If you're doing like LTL shipments, you probably aren't doing that out of your garage. If you are, you have a big garage, and you probably need a warehouse.
Yeah, so I love all the advice that you gave. We actually had ShipStation on the show, and Andy is a huge fan of ShipStation, and that's how he manages all of his shipments from multiple providers as well. My advice for you, Andrew, as somebody who does a lot of merchant fulfilled orders, is to open up accounts with all like the big three providers. So UPS, FedEx, all the providers, you can actually open up accounts with them, and they love serving their business customers, their small business customers, and you can actually negotiate better rates with them. So your salesperson for UPS, for example, they'll contact you and they'll work with you to negotiate better rates. And so like we had a big wholesale vendor account that we were selling through, and we contacted our UPS sales guy and we were like, look, we need better rates because this is really cutting into our business. And they gave us better rates than we could even get on Amazon. Also look at Shopify. So if you're not ready for ShipStation yet, let's just say that you're just starting on your Shopify store and you just have one product, and ShipStation, you're not ready to pay their rates yet to it's not a major operation yet. It's just a few products right out of your garage. Then just start by opening up your accounts with the big three. I love what Matt said about stamps.com. Super smart. You can get lots of discounted rates there. You can print your labels right at home. I use a Brother laser printer to print all of my labels. It's really easy to do, and it's a really affordable printer. And you can even, with UPS, they're my favorite provider, honestly, because with UPS, they give you free labels to use. You can go right on their website and order more labels to use. And then you can schedule daily pickups with them. So every day we have products leaving the house and we just schedule those pickups with UPS. And so we know our UPS driver very well. He comes by every day and he comes and picks up products right outside our front door, which is right here. So that would be my advice for you there. Then also there's a couple of other bulk shipping discount sites, like pirateship.com is another great one to use, as well as, like I said, Shopify is going to also offer discounted rates. But make sure you set up your proper labeling system and everything like that, and know that you can get free labels from some of your providers. So hopefully that is super helpful for you. And then think about when it comes to Shopify, you are driving that traffic. So definitely listen to our episode that we did with Colin Foster, because he talks about the best way to get set up on Shopify and how to build your funnels and everything. Did that answer your question, Andrew?
Yes, it did. Thank you guys very much.
Awesome. Great having you on the show. Thanks for joining us in the Zoom. All right, Matt. Well, let's just wrap up by having you talk to us about how people can reach you and a little bit more about Shaw 3PL. So
Perfect.
who is your ideal client, and how can people get in touch with you? Oh, wait,
Okay.
before we do that, we always ask a question about how you're staying motivated as a business owner right now. So are there any podcasts that you're listening to or books that you're reading that are really keeping you motivated?
So I'm a member of Build Your Life Resume, and it is Jesse Itzler and a few other members do a weekly. It's on Wednesday nights, and it's just very inspirational. They'll have lots of endurance athletes on and people that have really cool stories. It's a very similar format to this. It's a Zoom. I think it's at 8 o'clock every Wednesday, and I love that because if I'm kind of worn out on the week, and I go in there and I get hyped up by these people that are literally public speakers. They get paid to hype people up. And I get in there and I come out motivated, and it really is a great reset. So that is my number one go-to. How about you, Amy?
Well, I love, same thing. I read a ton of books. I haven't heard of Build Your Life Resume, so I'm definitely going to check that out. For me, it's the Scribed app. So I use an app called Scribed, SCRIBD,
Hmm.
and it's like $6 a month, and they have a ton of audiobooks and ebooks and everything that you can imagine. And I'm always on there reading a new book, learning something new, or listening to a new book. But that's my big thing. I'm a big reader, so I use Scribed for that because there's so much available. I used to, when I was first getting started, I used to always listen to podcasts, like in the car on the way to work. I would always listen to podcasts. But now that I work from home, I just do that from that side of things. So very good. All right.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for that tip. We're going to definitely check out Build Your Life Resume. And it sounds really awesome.
it
So,
is.
Andrew says, I started listening to the E-Myth Revisited today. Awesome book. Yes, that was
Yep,
one of
it's a good
my
one.
favorite books. Yes, that one really made me think of my business as a system, and really, yeah, it really, really helped me. So that was a great recent book that I read as well. So Matt, back to our question that I asked before this one. Tell us, who are your ideal clients for Shaw 3PL, what they can expect, and how they get in contact with you.
Yep. So Shaw 3PL, ideal client is someone that is navigating the Amazon business and they need help with their inventory flow. Or they need to repack or rekit or go through anything that needs some touch and feel to get to the end user. It doesn't have to just be Amazon. We deal with Walgreens, we deal with Walmart, and a number of other B2B clients. And so anything in that nature where it's flowing in a container, one pallet, either way, and then parsing it out and then sending it back out the door to a different destination, we can help. We do drop ships daily, and you can reach us ship@shawshipnow.com. Sorry, ship at shaw3pl.com.
Ship at shaw3pl.com. Awesome. Well, we will be in touch, and thank you so much for being on the show today and telling us your story about, how you had you've done so many, you've had so many pivots. And I think that's key for people to understand, that you can be successful, and you can pivot sometimes. It's okay. It's okay to pivot. It's okay to move into a different business model, and not be afraid to consistently make change. And you've profited from that change. And so that's really awesome.
Yep. It's exciting. I follow a lot of financial advice on Twitter, and a lot of the people they'll plug Amazon FBA as something that you should have in addition to investing and rental properties and stuff. And if you think about it, it's perfect because you can diversify your revenue streams. And so when one thing is down, something else potentially may be up. And so I think that those are good things to keep in mind.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I'm going to stop the live. I'm going to stop the recording. And for those of you who are here in the Zoom, We will take any of your questions that you have. We're happy to have you here, and we'll see you guys next week on the Seller Roundtable. Thanks so much.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for live Q&A and bonus content after the recording at sellerroundtable.com. Sponsored by the ultimate software tool for Amazon sales and growth, sellerseo.com and amazingathome.com.